So you'd like to become a gardener. To get started gardening is a lot easier than you might think it is. You don't have to grow a bunch of different varieties of things. You don't have to know what you're doing necessarily. You just need to start. You can start with just one crop. I suggest you start with something that's pretty easy to grow, like sunflowers, herbs, zinnias, but we can talk about that in another video. My first suggestion when starting a garden is to think about what are you actually going to eat. If you've never eaten an eggplant before, then it's probably not wise to start your garden with a bunch of eggplants. I would do something you're already familiar with. If you want to try something new, you could always go to the grocery store, buy some eggplant, then try to cook it, see if you can make it a certain way. If you do end up liking it, then, by all means, now go ahead and grow your eggplants, and it's going to be even better than what you get from the store. And this is what mainly brought me, personally, to gardening in the first place, is I noticed that homegrown ingredients tasted so much better, and turns out have more nutrients. So I started out as just wanting to be a better cook, which to me meant better ingredients. So I started growing my own, and that is where my gardening journey began. Since then, I've pretty much only been concentrating on gardening. I don't even hardly cook that much anymore. A lot of the times, I'll just pick things fresh out of the garden and eat them right then and there, especially tomatoes. I love having fresh tomatoes for breakfast when you go out in the morning to start watering. Besides having delicious food and ingredients to cook with, and staying healthy, of course, it's free therapy. Gardening is fun, relaxing, fulfilling, exciting. It gives you a reason to wake up in the morning if you didn't have one already. Another thing about gardening is you can save your own seeds. Some people take it a step further, and they make their own varieties by cross-pollinating certain crops. I've been gardening for a long time, and in my garden, I use multiple varieties of everything, actually, growing methods, plants. You can see I can grow some things in containers, and I'll do the same crop maybe in the ground right next to it. Some tomatoes are in the ground, some tomatoes are in containers, and a lot of things I have in raised beds. When you're a gardener, you never stop learning, so it's always good to keep experimenting. Even if you get the best advice possible from all the experts, unless they know your specific area, you might not be able to follow their instructions the same way, because every climate is different, and it can even vary from year to year. Do the research on what grows well in your area. Certain things, like crops like okra, are very heat tolerant and very tolerant of humidity. But other things might be very heat tolerant, but they need dry weather. You just have to research each individual crop sometimes. You're also going to need to know the appropriate times to plant your crop, and if you should start them indoors or direct sow them outside. If you try starting out with too many crops, this can get really confusing really quickly, and everything can just overwhelm you, and you could end up with possibly nothing. So it's best to just start simple. Start with just a couple things that you want to try. Like this squash. If you direct sow this in the ground, keep it moist, keep it mulched, a lot of squash grows very easily for people. Tomatoes can also grow easily for people, depending on the variety. But you never know, some things can get diseased. You need to experiment. I'm going to be starting a series for beginner gardeners to tell you what you can do step by step to make a great first-year garden for 2024. I've been a professional gardener for over a decade, and I've been doing it as a hobby for almost 20 years. So now I'd like to teach you how you can start gardening, because it's getting more and more important for us to be able to grow our own food, not only because of the prices, but because of the health quality. When you grow your own food, you can be sure that it isn't coated in pesticides or chemicals. Not only that, but you can get varieties of certain fruits and vegetables that you would never be able to buy in the store. So hit the subscribe button and let's start your gardening journey. Check back soon to find out the first steps you need to take.